and who kind of take up screen time unnecessarily. One is Spike, which we'll obviously talk about later on.
Crush is another one. I think Crush is another fantastic episode which gets overlooked and is a bit of a gem. Spike is fantastic in this season.
He's
great.
No, we're going to have so many arguments about this. This is, oh God, I wanted to drop kick Spike out of window for the entire freaking season.
We will, and I'm going to make my case pretty strong, and I'm going to tell you why.
I'll strongly too. So
that's good. I think Spike has great character growth this season. I think there's an arc which he goes on over the course. No, he does. No, don't argue now. We'll get to it later. You still get a lot of the great Spike dialogue and lines that we know him for. Very entertaining along the way. I'm assuming you're probably going to disagree with me on Fall for Love, but I think Fall for Love is a standout episode. I think that's
when we get to that, I'll tell you my thoughts on that episode. I have conflicting thoughts on that episode. So, yeah.
I really love the scenes with him and Dawn. I think they have some great scenes together, and I think that's a big part of my argument. Spike stuff I actually do like, and I do like that we return to him wanting to get his chip back out, and some of that drama, I think it sort of fits Spike that he's ever the opportunist and he sees that as an opportunity. And I do actually quite like the fake out with the Doctor where he uses a penny to
Yes, I do like that. I thought that was clever.
That's pretty good.
Plus there's some funny things with the Doctor. Like I love how poking.
Spike, the way it's revealed than Tara.
That is kind of funny.
that is that's sort of darkly funny.
I also kind of like Spike's little whole when he said, and this is one of the few times I don't mind Spike in the season, when he's all like, "Oh, just a bit of spin to keep the ladies in check. Oh, you're a piece of work. I like you." And I'm like, yep, that's classic.
Yeah, that's classic Spike. Talk about Fall for Love, and let's talk about Spike, because Fall for Love is one of my favourite episodes of the season. It's of course a great crossover with Angel. This is not only a really strong Spike episode for his character, but I also think it's a really strong Buffy episode for her character, because it's really important in her stages in exploring her roots, and I think it's very natural that she would turn to Spike and be curious how he killed two Slayers. The flashback scenes, I think, are brilliantly done, like his fights with the other two Slayers. There's some great direction in those scenes. There's some great editing, like the back and forth, the way it's cutting between Spike, his descriptions, and then like him actually fighting them. One thing that cannot be denied is the spark and the chemistry with Sarah Michelle Gellar and James Masters, and the way they play off each other is so wonderful.
So, if I take my bias and my dislike of Spike out of the equation, I actually think this is a freaking fantastic episode. I actually listed this as number 2 on my top 10 character-centric episodes of Buffy. So if I'm coming from it completely unbiased and just watching it as like great TV, it's freaking fantastic. You're not wrong. The editing alone is amazing. That scene where he's talking to Buffy about fighting Mickey Wood, and he's going back and forth between the alley fight and the train fight. Oh my God, it's amazing. I think that is such great work. I love seeing I love the Whirlwind. I could watch an entire series just about the Whirlwind. Slow motion walk of the 4 of them through the Boxer Rebellion is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The fight with the Chinese Slayer is also done really, really well. And I do agree that this is one of the few times where I feel it is organic for Buffy to seek out Spike, because, like she said, she is trying to figure out why the Slayers die young, what it is that they do wrong. And so, of course, if she's got a serial killer in her backyard, why wouldn't you go to him and ask him how he killed these Slayers? We get to the end of Spike's whole diatribe or whatever, and Buffy, he does that whole, you want to dance, and she's like, oh, even if I did, it's not with you, Spike. It would never be with you. And then she throws the money at him, and she's like, you're beneath me. And then we get this close-up of Spike, like, sobbing on the ground. And I feel like the show wants me to feel sorry for him. I don't. I'm sorry. But someone who has just spent 2 hours telling this woman how he brutally murdered these 2 girls who were pretty much of her kind, how he got off on this murder, how he, found it exciting and exhilarating to kill these women, and then she tells him that he's beneath her. He is beneath her. This would be like Ted Bundy, like, sitting down with Buffy and telling her everything, and then her saying, you're beneath me, and us feeling sorry for him. I don't buy this whole poor little Spike, Buffy's being so mean to him. No, it's bullshit. He is beneath her.
Pathetic, and that's what that scene shows.
Okay.
And obviously they're doing this overall thing in the season where he's starting to have feelings for Buffy. And that comes from partly fighting side by side. They've got this hatred, and it just comes out of nowhere. And him
does come out of nowhere.
No, but what I mean is I think that's how it goes down sometimes, where you have this person who you respect, like begrudging respect, because you are both warriors in a way, and it's sort of this thing of, like, we're so competitive with each other. We hate each other so much. It's that love to hate thing. And just that thing of him having a dream and waking up, it's like, oh my God, because he's tormented by this idea, then he has those sorts of feelings. So I think what we're talking about is raw animalistic feelings that over time, this is where I think they're doing something quite bold and quite sort of dark, where it comes from a disturbing place where over time this woman or this Slayer who he's got this rivalry with, and okay, there's a little bit of a begrudging respect, like I said, but they're sworn enemies. Like, they disgust each other pretty much, and just this idea that he would suddenly find somewhere in himself where he's got actual feelings for her, like attraction, and it almost comes out for this extreme hatred. It does engage you in the villains. It does get inside their world and their head, and it does actually make them, in the context of a TV show, sympathetic. And I think that's what you forget sometimes, is if you apply this stuff to the real world, of course in real life someone like Spike would be just reprehensible and all the rest of it. But this is a television show. This is drama. You want to see characters go on the journey and do interesting things.
But I see, and we'll talk about this more as the season goes on, but this is my issue with Spike, and it starts in this season and it just continues through for the rest of the series. The writers, when it comes to Spike, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want him to be an evil villain who somehow still does good, which doesn't make any sense. So, for example, you have these episodes and these scenarios where Spike will violate Buffy to the grossest degrees, and then yet at the end of the episode or the incident, something will happen and he will turn around and get rewarded for it. And it just doesn't work. Also, I have to say, I, as a fan, have never really bought Buffy, ever. I've never, ever really seen what everyone else sees when it comes to this ship. Watching it this time, okay, and usually that was on Buffy's side. Usually I would be like, I've never bought it on Buffy's side. This time around, I was having a hard time buying it on Spike's side too, because I couldn't figure out, like, I get what you're saying, like, where we're supposed to think his hatred comes from. Sworn enemies, can't kill her, so therefore I start to desire her because I'm unable to engage in violence. But, okay, so Spike has his little dream at the end of No Place Like Home. So that's out of my mind. So that's 4 episodes into the season. In the
Yeah.
previous 3, so in that episode, he's going on to hug me. He's all like, she's everywhere. She's haunting me. I can't get away from her. They literally shared 3 scenes over the previous 3 episodes. I'm like, where did this she's haunting me come from?
This season, we're talking about the whole history ever since season 2. That's
Okay,
what's
just beyond creepy, though. If his feelings for her were developing from there,
no, I don't mean. Oh, maybe yeah, because of the attraction, but I just mean the overall kind of rivalry they have, like the hatred, like the.
But again, I don't.
You
even
know,
think
him
it's that
saying
intense.
a different dynamic at this point. Because Spike, unfortunately, is in a position where he can't really go after the Slayer. So he can't really be this sort of... I mean, he can obviously take on the role he did in season 4, which we both agreed worked well. But
Yeah.
it's like he can't actually physically go after her anymore. So I think that's where he's coming from, where he's very... conflicted, because on the one hand he's sort of half a good guy where he's kind of on their side begrudgingly, but at the same time he still hates her. So it's that sort of thing. It's like the conflict with Spike, and I think that makes sense to me.
I understand, I do. I understand everything you're saying, and I understand that that's what they want me to believe, but what I'm seeing on the screen does not support it. I was so surprised when we went through the first 3 episodes, and I was like, where the fuck is Spike? Who took Spike out of this season? It literally would not make one lick of difference. Everything would still play out exactly the same. He is completely useless this season. He does nothing that impacts anything.
You could say that about a lot of characters. You could say that about Tara. You could say, but the thing is, it's about the characters. It's a character-driven
that's the thing. For me, he doesn't have a place here because, I don't buy anything on Buffy's side. Everything from Buffy this season towards Spike was either indifference or disgust, and that to me does not make the romance. Say, for example, a character like Xander, who we talked about not actually having much of an impact this season. But Xander is one of Buffy's very best friends. He's been there since season 1, so therefore it makes absolute sense that he would still be there. Theory, again, you'll disagree with this, but I actually kind of like this theory. There is a theory that Spike's feelings for Buffy were part of the monk spell. And I actually agree with that, because that whole dream and the way he reaches up out of the dream and is like, oh my god, and suddenly he's in love with her. I'm like, yep, I'm with everyone else. It was part of the monk spell so that Dawn would have an extra layer of protection.
If it's your position, then you don't think they should have made him a good guy in the first place. Absolutely. Okay, so it's not just the execution, it's the fact that you think it was a bad idea to do that. Yep. Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
I think Spike worked. Season 4 Spike, I think, is what worked the best when he was the enemy within, when he definitely absolutely was not on the Scooby side, but he kind of had to grudgingly work with them because they had common goals. I think that was the Spike that worked the best. And as I've spoken about, I think Spike in season 5 of Angel actually has really good characterization. They're probably the only 2 Spikes I can really deal with when I think that he's actually got decent characterization.
Well, no, season 2 as well.
Oh, well, he's more of just like I think in season 2, for me, he gets a little bit overshadowed by Angelus and Drusilla, who I both find a bit more interesting.
They give it a very good slow build and a very logical build. A lot of TV shows that sort of happens where it only really takes a few episodes and they sort of do a turn. It's not like that at all. In season 4, he has a chip in the head. There's a reason why he's an antagonist, but he sort of does have to work with the Scoobies at various times, and he does become that almost in between, where he's still like a villain in many ways. It's still the classic Spike, but because of circumstances, he does have to rely a little bit on the Scooby's help, and vice versa a little bit. So from there we go on to season 5, and we get this progression over the course of the season. Now, bear in mind, he's not full-blown good guy by the end of the season. He's still not there. Like, he's pretty close, but I mean, maybe by the very end. But like, if you go throughout the season, he still feels like an antagonist, and he still feels like. And here's the thing which I like about this, and the reason it works for me, moments where he is awful and he says awful things, he does awful things, and he is creepy. But to me, that works because he is a very flawed, like, individual. He is a villain at the end of the day. At this point, he's slowly going over to the good side, but he is still essentially a villain. And James Masters has said this himself. He has said, then you can never forget Spike is a terrible character, like, as a person.
I definitely don't ever forget that. I'll let you have your say, but then I'm going to counter it. So keep going.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why his turn and his transition works for me, because you still have those moments where he feels terrible, he feels creepy, he feels nasty. And that's good, because in other TV shows, they would just make it's a complete switch. He's suddenly a good guy, like a complete good guy. But they actually make it feel like it's still the same Spike. It's just then he has new allegiances. Stuff when he's like sniffing Buffy's like...
Oh, God, yeah.
It's gross. It's terrible.
It's disgusting.
That's a good example of what I'm talking about, because first of all, to be fair, for such a gross scene, it is actually quite funny. They do make it quite funny.
But it's still disgusting. But I will give it to you. It is,
and that's kind of the thing about...
Gotta get this scent. Ah, yeah, that's the stuff. And Riley's like, get out of here.
Well, that's the thing about Spike, though, as a character, and the writing of him, is he can make things like that really actually quite funny in the writing and in his delivery. But the other thing is, that's a good scene to keep track of later in the season, because this is where I think he goes on an arc where at the start of the season he is still a disgusting piece of shit scumbag, but by the end of the season, not that he's fully grown out of that, but he suddenly does feel like he's got more of a sense of morality.
Does he, though?
Yeah, I think he does. I think the stuff with Dawn and with Joyce, first of all, it's sort of a beautiful sentiment, this idea that he legitimately respects Joyce as a woman, leaving the flowers but not leaving his name on the flowers. That's a sign of legitimately him kind of caring, because it's not like he was looking for attention.
Yeah, but I mean, we saw that in season 3 that he gets on with Joyce. We know that Spike can get along with individual people and have, legitimate good feelings for individual people. I don't think this is anything new or different. He likes Joyce. We saw that in season 3. Hell, we even saw that in season 2.
He protects Dawn. I think the way he looks after Dawn, like, you can argue if you want, but I don't buy that it's just because he wants to get close to Buffy. I think it is because he has that sense of morality and he actually wants to look after Dawn. He puts himself on the line. So, like, for example, the stuff with the eggs in that episode and the monster, and he's putting himself on the line quite a lot.
I don't think that he has any... The writers want to convince me that Spike's becoming a good guy. He's not. As far as I am concerned, and as far as it looks like to me, and Tara has a great quote about this in, I think it's Crush, when they're talking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and she's talking about Quasimodo, and she says, but he has no moral compass, no sense of right or wrong. Everything he does is in service of this one woman who will never love him back. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Spike. She's literally describing Spike. Everything Spike does is because he's obsessed with / in love with, whatever, Buffy. Now, I'm not going to deny that he does seem to have a genuine connection with Joyce and with Dawn, but I don't think that's anything out of the normal. Again, like I said, we've seen him connect with Joyce in season 3, and I think the reason that he likes Dawn is because Dawn admires him so much, you know, like we have that scene where he's telling her all those stories about what a big bad vampire he was. And I do think that a lot of his protection comes down to Buffy. It's like when the Buffy bot when Buffy poses as the bot to find out whether or not Spike told Glory anything.
Yeah.
Spike specifically says, if anything happened to Dawn, it would destroy Buffy. And I couldn't do that to her. Nothing about Dawn. He doesn't care about Dawn. If Dawn died,
I don't agree he doesn't care about, but
okay, maybe a little bit.
That shows you that he does care about Buffy. That sells that.
See, and this right here, this is my problem with Spike, and this goes so much into season 6. The writers want to show me that Spike is still evil, like you were saying. He still feels like Spike. So they want to show me that he's disgusting and will violate Buffy, and in season 6 will abuse Buffy. But then I'm supposed to feel like I'm on his side because every so often he'll do something that's good for her. Like, intervention is a great example. He violates the Buffy bot is one of the grossest things Spike has ever done. The violation that he puts Buffy through with that Buffy bot, oh my God. So we have this whole episode of Spike being disgusting and showing how gross he is, but because at the end he withheld, an hour of torture, big whoop, suddenly we're supposed to think, oh, he's so fantastic, even though he literally spent this whole episode violating Buffy Summers. It doesn't work for me.
I don't think we are, though. I think you're reaching.
Why else would Buffy kiss him? Like, that makes no sense.
That's a good scene because of the way Buffy puts it at the end. Like, the message of the scene is good because she sort of says, because she makes a point of saying the robot's gone. The robot was gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. What you did for me in Dawn, that's real. So that's the reason why that scene works so well.
Yeah, but why would she kiss him? That doesn't make that was pure fan hand.
By the end of the season, he's in a place where he's part of the team. Like, he's definitely he's doing selfless things, and we'll get to the GIF when we get there, but his stuff in that is just fantastic. Like,
yeah, but again, it's only motivated by one thing. It's motivated by Buffy. Buffy died at the end of The Weight of the World. Spike would fuck off and leave the rest of them to deal with Glory in the gift. There's no way he would stick around if Buffy died. The only reason he sticks around in season 6 is because of his guilt, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But I
love the way you've just contradicted your point, because then he does stick around in season. Oh,
because of his guilt, but that's only because of his guilt over Buffy.
Yeah, but then you've just said he would have fucked off if she died in the way.
He didn't have any guilt there. He actually believes that he's responsible for Buffy's death at the beginning of season 6.
I don't know why it would be his fault anyway, but
the writers on Buffy, they want me to believe that with Spike, the good outweighs the bad. But for me, it just doesn't. I can't watch Spike do the shit that he does in season 5 because the writers, you can't say, I am perfectly fine with bad characters. Some of the characters I love are horrendous characters, but the narrative has to support that. The narrative around Spike doesn't support that. The narrative around Spike wants me to, like I said, the writers, they want to have their cake and eat it, has no idea how to actually express emotions, which makes sense because he's a soulless vampire.
Yeah.
That part makes sense. I don't think he has any growth this season. He's basically the same Spike he's always been. He's obsessed with Buffy, so he's obsessed with a woman, okay? Used to be Drusilla, now it's Buffy.
Shades of grey. I like characters with shades of grey, and I think
I don't think he's got shades of grey, though. I think he's just an asshole who has the occasional...
Yeah, but that makes the character more interesting. Inconsistencies lightened up in scenes like the scene with Joyce and the flowers. Because the speech he gives to Xander is he said, I like the woman. She didn't put airs and graces on, and she always had a good cup of tea. I think that's a great line from Spike. And I think, again, the statement of him not leaving the name, because so much of the complaint like you have with Spike is him being self-centered, egotistical, and all that. Well, clearly he's not in that scene, because if he was, he would have left a name.
Okay, so there's like one scene in the entire season
No, it's
where I
not one
could
scene.
possibly give him. That's the only
I've
one where
named
I could
other
explain it
scenes.
away. Yeah, but all the other scenes I don't believe show that he's grown. I think they just show that he's obsessed with Buffy, which we know.
Except the stuff with Dawn, because he clearly is looking out for Dawn. And also, there's an episode where he makes a point of saying to Dawn, you can't tell Buffy about this. Like,
Yep. Oh, you're talking about Forever when he helps her get the demon eggs?
I think so, yeah. Because she would kill me, and there is some empathy there with, I think, what they're going through, because this idea of he helps Dawn try to bring her mother back, and I think there's something where he emphasizes. I mean, maybe because he had a lot of time for Joyce as well, but like, there is something to do with that, where he's able to tune into like real emotions, and like, in a way, he's the sort of character where, even though for many times he's soulless, heartless, all the rest, in a funny sort of way, because he is this outsider to human emotions, he actually understands them the best.